What is going on, Belly Up Sports family? It's Parker Ainsworth here with another episode of the Midweek Mid-Range. I'm joined by two new guests to this show, but not new to sports and not new to basketball. I've got LaDarius and Kevin. I'll start with LaDarius. LaDarius, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well, Parker. How are you, man?
I'm doing all right. It's a Wednesday. For those of you that are new to the show, my day job is being a teacher and coach, and we just started 2-a-days last week. So I'm a little tired, but we're pushing through. We're powered through. This might be a caffeinated beverage in this thing.
Pushing through. That's right.
Pushing through.
We're bringing it.
We're bringing it. Kevin, speaking of bringing it, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Parker. It's great to be on. I appreciate you asking.
For sure, man. So before we get too far, I want to let these folks introduce themselves, talk a little bit about what they do with Belly Up. They both have shows of their own. They've taken time out of their week to come join us, and we really appreciate it. Again, we'll just keep going as I look at it from left to right. LaDarius, talk us through all the stuff you got going on.
Sure. Well, yeah, I'm LaDarius, and I just recently joined the Belly Up family last month, actually. And I contribute. I write for the WNBA. I write for wrestling and for baseball. And then I have my own. I've had a podcast of my own for about 3 years, the Sports in the World podcast I have. And then, like I said, just all around sports, I just love sports. It's really calming. Sometimes gets you a little angry, but, it keeps the blood flowing. So
it does keep the blood flowing in the best way possible, right?
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
Kevin, you got a lot going on. So if we're going to call LaDarius green to Belly Up Sports, you're not quite green. You're a vet. Talk us through it.
No, I've been with Belly Up for about 1.5 years now, actually. And I'm pretty much on the fantasy side. So if you want to find anything that I'm doing, come over to the Belly Up fantasy side. I'm pretty much the go-to guy. Anything with fantasy right now. I'm involved with baseball. That's my first love. I guess we shouldn't talk about that too much on a basketball show, but that's I have a show. We do it every Monday at 7 p.m. Central, and called the Belly Up Fantasy Live Baseball Show. Got some guys that come on there with me, a couple guests that we've had over there. So that's every Monday. I do an article every week for the fantasy site. I did 2 actually last week. I did one on baseball. Usually I do the pickup fantasy, pickup off the waiver wire, and also did a expose on best ball. As as an industry, we're into a league right now for charity, and it's best ball, and I didn't know anything about best ball, so I did some research and I did an article on that. So pretty much, and when the football season comes around, I'll do an article every week about picking up off the waiver wire for that, and pretty much whatever we need on Belly Up, that's me.
The utility man. You also did some fantasy basketball in the winter with us. That's where we first met.
So, you and I went head to head. We were in the same division. That was a lot of fun. So
yeah,
actually, I don't know if you. I actually won that.
No, I was about to say I don't think that went very well for me. It's actually, but anyway, so we've clearly worked it all out. We're happy to welcome LaDarius to the team, and so we're going to start off with this. With a section or a part of the show that we call Hot Tea Cold Brew, where we look at a different set of NBA stories, headlines, ideas, takes, whatever, and talk about if they're hot tea or if they're cold brew. Hot Tea Cold Brew is brought to you by Yeti's Cups, Coolers, and Koozies. I've got a lot of that in front of me right now. It's been that kind of day. Yeti's the go-to shop for keeping things hot or cold, just like NBA stories. Yeti's based out of Austin, Texas. Check out the links in our social media handles for all of your tailgating, camping, and daily life needs. Yeti is built for the wild. And so for folks new to the show, we got new audiences, new people on. This came kind of from the idea of like that Kermit the Frog drinking hot tea meme. Like, how are you looking at some of these headlines that I'm trying to get out? And I guess really the big NBA headlines this week have all, again, this looking at the NBA, have all been around Summer League, right? It's all these predominantly young guys getting out here playing for the first time for many of us on national TV with other grown men and professionals guarding them. And it's really, it's been an exciting Summer League. So if you haven't been paying attention to the Las Vegas Summer League, many years ago was like a bunch of dudes in empty gyms playing in front of GMs and managers and so on. and it's slowly become this event. And like this summer, the games are on ESPN and ESPN2. I mean, it's really turning into a bigger and bigger deal. The who's who of basketball is there watching these young guys in the future of the game going. So we're going to start with hot tea, cold brew. Not because you're from Florida, but because we'll snake draft this thing a little bit. LaDarius, hot tea or cold brew? The most surprising team in the Summer League has been the Orlando Magic. The Orlando Magic are actually playing as we speak, I believe. Yeah, I think so. And then, but again, the big headline name there obviously is Jalen Suggs. Also have a young guy named RJ Hampton. Also have Franz Wagner. Like they have a pretty talented young roster. And I think they've shaken things up a little bit. So hot tea, cold brew, LaDarius. The Orlando Magic are off to a surprising start.
I'll take the hot tea on this. Like I say, being from Florida, I watch them. To me, what's surprising, like I say, they went very, very young. I think getting Jalen Suggs and Franz Wagner, using their 2 first-round picks to get shooters. The biggest problem for the Magic last year, they just couldn't shoot. They couldn't shoot to save anybody. And so I think what management has done is went out and said, you know what, we're going to go and get some young shooters. We're going to kind of clear the way and just kind of let them do their thing. And you're kind of seeing that in Summer League because earlier today they played the Cavs. And I watched that. And I was just very impressed because to me, I didn't expect, I'm not going to sit there and say I didn't expect it to be great. But to me, I saw some things that I didn't see before. Because to me, they're one of the more surprising teams because I didn't expect them to be great because they're just so young. They're so green. So, but like I say, go ahead.
I would say, yeah. No, I mean, I think that if your veteran guy is a 19, I mean, on this squad, obviously Summer League, but is a 19-year-old RJ Hampton, right? Like, that's a very young team, right? Yeah. I got Cole Anthony is also like 20. I don't think he's turned 21 yet. I might have my dates wrong there, but that's a very, very young team. You were surprised with the shooting. Are the shooters that like you kind of anticipate? Is it, what surprised you about what they're doing there?
I think what's surprising is that given Suggs and Wagner, I'm just surprised at the fact that hey, they're going out there and they're doing what I didn't see all season from the actual Magic team. It feels like they're playing more together. It feels different, and I know it's just Summer League, so I don't want to, take it all, to go all the way type thing. But what I just been impressed with was just like I say, just how they're playing more together because it felt like last year a lot of youth, and we got to understand, like you mentioned, RJ Hampton, and like when you look at the overall Magic roster going to the season, it's still going to be relatively young for the most part. But looking at Jalen Suggs, I was impressed. I was really impressed with the fact that, knowing him coming out, I believe he went to Gonzaga. And I, seeing them, to their championship run the Bulldogs did. I'm like, if we can get that guy, and I'm surprised he even fell to us. I was very surprised. I thought he was going to go to Toronto at 4. So I was like, okay, so we're kind of out of but when he fell, I think they rushed that card up there before Scotty Barnes got his hat for the Raptors. It's like, okay, Suggs is available. We got to run and get him. And I think they were just as surprised because I was super surprised because then like a mini mock that I did, yeah, I kind of had Suggs gone by 4. So I was just, like I say, looking at the overall Magic, I just like the way, if that can transition into the season, the Magic, like I say, they could have a little shock value going into the season. They could surprise some people, despite their youth, because of the fact that if they get better at, like I say, I keep emphasizing the shooting. I'm not defensively. I feel, it's okay. But like the shooting was the Achilles heel of the team last year, and they went out and addressed it with their first 2 first-round picks.
Completely. Kevin, I want to hear your take here as well. Hot tea, cold brew. The most surprising team in Summer League has been the Orlando Magic. Again, as LaDarius just outlined, they are a much better shooting team, it feels like, than the actual Magic. So I don't know what's going on there. What do you think, Kevin?
I'm gonna go with hot tea as well. Maybe just a little cooler than what Darius is going with. But what I've liked, what I've seen, especially out of Suggs, is that he had 24 points, which is great, but he also had the 9 rebounds. And the players that I like do more than one thing well. And so if he could shoot and also rebound, that's speaking really, really big to me. So I'm going to go with definitely hot tea on that one. And I like what I've seen out of Orlando so far. And I don't know if they're the most surprising team. The surprising team to me, I think I'm going to go with your Houston Rockets so far. So that's where I land. Not just because you're hosting the show, but I like what I've seen out of Houston so far. So the most surprising team to me is Houston.
Well, thank you for appeasing the host, though. I do have a question to them later because I want y'all to make sure I'm not being too much of a homer, but we'll get that later in the show when we get there. We've had a good first couple games. I'll leave it at that. Their opponent in the second game was the Detroit Pistons. And my hot tea, cold brew question about them, Kevin, I'm going to start with you just to snake draft it a little bit.
Okay.
Hot tea, cold brew. Detroit will start 3 players from their summer league team on their regular season team. My parenthetical there, I guess, is Cade Cunningham, Killian Hayes, and Saddiq Bey. Obviously, if you want to throw in more or less or different, that'd be up to you as well. But are they going to really start 3 summer league guys? And if so, how is this a summer league team and not a regular NBA team?
Well, I'm definitely gonna go with the cold brew on that one. I like what I've seen out of him. And, of course, Cade, he's starting. There's no question about that. I like what I saw last year out of Bay during the season, so I'm going to go ahead and put him on the starter as well. But, Detroit, even before they drafted all these guys, had a young team already. And there were some guys that I saw that I liked what they did. So I don't think all 3 of these guys start for the Detroit. I'm going to say right now they're all going to be important to the team, but no, there's no chance to me that all 3 of them are going to start on that team.
Yeah, and I think Detroit is, and not unlike my Houston Rockets, one of those teams that just is going to have a lot of guys under 24 years old. I want to throw it to you too, LaDarius. Hot tea, cold brew. Detroit, the actual Detroit Pistons in the regular season, will start at least 3 players from their regular season team, or from the summer league team on their regular season team. I have Cade, Killian, and Saddiq. If you've got more, less, different, talk to us. What you got?
I'm gonna kind of echo Kevin here and say it's cold brew, because listen, Cade Cunningham starting. Yeah, I don't think I don't have to sell people on that. No, I don't have to sell people. No, like you drafted number 1 overall. I think he's gonna. And Killian, I think potentially, like I said, I like all 3, but I think to me, I can't see it, like, because essentially they're already young as is.
Yeah.
But I think you put in Cade, you put in Killian, maybe have Saddiq come off the bench, somehow or another, if you do it that way. But to have all 3 guys in the starting lineup, I don't see it. Listen, I'm not Dwayne Cade. I'm not the coaching staff there. I don't know what they see, but I think like I say, I can see Cade definitely starting. I can kind of wrap my head around Hayes as well. Saddiq, he played very well. But so to have all 3, I think going into the season, I think I don't feasibly see it. I can see Cade and maybe Hayes. Saddiq, I'm kind of on the fence on. So I'll just say cold brew. I can see 2 of those 3, but not all 3.
We've got one average Deegan who I don't know, but chiming in that Luka Garza should also be a starter. Luka Garza has looked good in the summer league. That's kind of where their clog is to me, is they just paid Kelly Olynyk a nice chunk of change. They've got Jeremy Grant, who they're kind of paying a nice chunk of change. What do y'all think of Luka Garza and how he fits into the rotation here a little bit? Let's go back to Kevin, because this originally started as your prompt here.
Well, he'll definitely be in the rotation. There's no question about that. And, but all these young guys, if you're going to play all these young guys major minutes, you might as well put up the white flag before the season even gets started. You know what I mean? You're mailing it in for this next season. And if that's what you want to do, and you want to get these guys ready for next year, I guess that's fine. But I can't see them doing that, the whole season. Like you said, you've got all these guys that they paid major money to. Why are you going to do that if you're just going to mail it in? So these young guys are going to play, but you've got to have some veteran guys on your floor. Otherwise, rookies, as talented as rookies can be, they make mistakes, and that's just. Hopefully, you get rid of some of that during the summer league, but we all know that's not going to be what's happening. You're not going to get rid of all the jitters and the, mistakes. If you're 18, 19, 20 years old, you're going to make mistakes. That's just the way it is. And so, yeah, there's some real. I like what they're doing, but they're not just going to put all the 18-year-olds out there and just let them go crazy. There's got to be some veterans on the floor.
Well, and as someone whose mistakes at 18, 19, 20 years old were not nationally televised, I appreciate you pointing out that we all had them.
Yeah.
LaDarius, what do you think about how Luka Garza fits into this rotation? Is he gonna make some plays out there? Is he gonna be kind of a later in the bench, further down the road kind of guy? What do you think after watching for a couple games?
I'm gonna piggyback, once again, Kevin again. Like I say, 18, 19, 20, listen. Like, there's a quote like, to err is human, to forgive divine. Listen. When you're that age, there's going to be mistakes, and I'm not saying Garza. I'm not saying it's terrible, but if you're paying money to guys like Olynyk and Jeremy Grant, who, you obviously want them on the floor. Like, even though no one's expecting the Pistons to go out there and compete, in the league, no less the East. Garza's a guy that you can kind of have on the end of the bench, and you can kind of. And you can kind of squeeze them in garbage time, however you want to do it. But, like Kevin said, when you're 18, 19, 20, you're out there making mistakes and you're in the NBA, listen, those mistakes now, everybody's seeing them. Like in summer league, people are watching and like, oh, he's great. But when you get up there and you're playing with veterans of the game, you're out there, it's going to be more visible. So I'm not saying, Garza's going to be, he's not going to be a huge part of the rotation, but I think he's in the future plans for the Pistons because you still have Olynyk and you still have Jeremy Grant. You still have veteran pieces there. So I kind of see Garza and kind of like coming off the bench, maybe at the end of the bench, potentially. I don't see him like maybe in the full rotation. I mean, there would have to be some injuries. I'm hoping nobody gets injured, of course. But I just see him as a guy just maybe sitting on the end of the bench, for a while and then getting his time later.
Yeah, I think the deal here is that none of these guys are a finished product. Like one that's the closest to a NBA starter.
Are we still?
There's Cade and lose you guys.
Okay, I think that you were frozen there for a minute.
Yeah. Are we here?
Yeah, we're here.
Anyway, I was just saying that I think we all agree that we all agree that Cade is like the closest thing to an NBA ready starter because he probably already is one, right? He's a tremendous.
You don't take him first overall if he isn't. So.
Yeah, right. No, he's a tremendous basketball player. Killian and Sadiq are kind of this flirtatious line to me. Like they could be a starter on a not so good team. Because I just don't want to say bad, or they could be a rotational young guy on a better team, and it's what do they want to do with those kind of guys? Luka Garza presents interesting things too because in college he was this like, for lack of a better phrase, antiquated looking post. Like you were just like, oh, but how many of those guys like even like Jared Allen in the NBA for the Cleveland Cavaliers, right? Like he picks, he rolls, he dunks, he blocks shots, and it's like that's are you going to play a guy that Garza tries to do a little bit more mid-range kind of stuff. It's like, no, we want bigs that do this and this and this. And if you shoot, that's awesome too. But so we'll see how they rotate him through. I think that's a fun young team to watch over the years. I just don't know that I'm picking them to win a lot of games if they start those young guys. Although maybe they'll say, screw you and start the young guys and win a bunch of games in like 5 years. Last one, not the last one, sorry, but the next one is looking at my Houston Rockets. As we've alluded to, the Houston Rockets are 2-0 in Summer League. Big games out of both Jalen Green, Josh Christopher, Alperen Sengun, who is like this godsend of a Turkish man. All super young guys. Very, very fun team. Obviously, I'm oohing and eyeing because I'm a Rockets fan. I've got the shirt on. I've got the banner up there. I've got bobbleheads of Hakeem and James Harden. Like this is my team, right? But it feels good to win some games for the first time in a long time. So talk me off of this homer cliff. I'm gonna start with LaDarius. Hot tea, cold brew. The Houston Rockets are the best team in Vegas.
Let's see. How do I approach this?
Or pat me on the back. You don't have to talk off the ledge. You can just both jump. Like I don't.
I mean, somebody has to have the parachute between us. If there's only one, then clearly, I know you're going to probably take the parachute. And I'd be okay with that. It's my fault.
Are we the best team in Vegas?
You know, wish you can do half hot and half cold here, but but to be, but in all seriousness, I'll lean toward the hot, because when I look at the Rockets and I look at them as a franchise now, when I look at a guy like Jalen Green, who you could have made a case could have been the number 1 overall pick, you could have made a very strong case. So when the Rockets, when they got Jalen Green, it kind of felt like a corner turn. And when you watch him play in the summer league, once again, you talking about with Christopher and the Turkish player, the name I
may be butchering it. I think it's Alperen Sengun, but if you're in the comments, go ahead and tell me I'm saying that wrong. But I think that's how you say it right. He is so funny on Instagram. Anyway, keep going.
Like I said, you're the Rockets fan. I'll trust your pronunciation.
Me too.
Me too. Yeah. But when I look at this Rockets team, they're going to be very interesting. I think looking at this summer league, you're going to see obviously a lot of Jalen Green, but you might see a lot of Christopher too, because like I said, this roster, like the oldest guy on the team is John Wall, so like there's room in summer league to be like it's a lot of guards. It's a lot of guards that me personally, there's a lot of guards right now. But you look at Jalen Green, I look at look the way they're playing in the summer league. Once again, it's in the same boat as maybe the Pistons, where they're not going to compete and they're not going to compete for a title or anything like that. This year, in the next couple of years, going to be about growth and development. But right now, I'll take the hot tea, because I talked myself into it, because I was the more I talked. So, because look, to me, if you're the Rockets, if you're a Rockets fan, you have to like it. Because you have to like what you're seeing, because you look at Jalen, because if you're Jalen, like you get Jalen Green and then you get Chris, you're looking at this team and you're like, listen, obviously not everybody's on this team is going to be on the NBA roster. Like Jalen Green's the one we can check the box on and be sure. But there is what I like to call upside. There's tremendous upside.
Absolutely.
There's upside, and as long as you have upside, you're not going down, you're not having the downside, you're doing pretty good. And if you're the Rockets right now, they are probably, you can make a case. Imagine there are a couple things you can make a case for. But when I watch Houston, yeah, I'll take the hot tea and say that they are probably the best team in the summer league right now.
All right, Kevin, we got one.
All right.
You going to talk us on the ledge, or are we all three jumping here?
No, I think we're all on the ledge with this one. And because I'm going to come in hot. And, I do think that so far they're the best team. But, what the hottest take is we've already seen the must-see game of the entire summer league, because you had the number 1 pick going up against the number 2 pick. And so what could be better than that? And the thing that I take away from that is the number 2 pick outplayed the number 1 pick. He did, because he had 25 points. And the number 1 pick had 20 points. I mean, there's not a whole lot of discrepancy there. But, and he also shot 54% from the field. I'm talking about Green. So anytime you shoot over 50%, even if you're, doesn't matter if you're, shooting down by the 7-Eleven or whatever it might be, if you're hitting over 50% from the field, that you got to be impressed with that. And so yeah, definitely hot take on the must-see game has already happened in the entire summer league, and so I like what Houston. I like what they look like, and I say that because I'm a Jazz guy, and kind of I hate to give the compliments to Houston, and
Are you still bitter about 95?
Yeah, that's what it
No,
sounds
I'm
like.
good with 95. I died in 95, just so you know that. But anyhow, I like what I've seen, and the cat right behind me agrees with me. So there she is. So she agrees with what I'm talking about right now. So if as Parker, as you well know, Houston gave you nothing last year to cheer about. Especially after Harden, beat feet, there was nothing to cheer about.
It's
But
been a rough year between
it has been, there's no question. The whole
trash
Houston,
cans, Deshaun
yeah, the
Watson,
whole
James
Houston
Harden.
has been on the back of the trash truck for what, about a year now or so. So, but and that you got to go through the bad times sometimes to get to the promised land. So,
but do you have to do it all at once, Kevin?
Well, sometimes
I really like this Rockets team. I think that's really cool that so mid-January, James Harden publicly asked for a trade in the press conference, right? After all the behind-the-scenes stuff that the Athletic leaked, whatever, right? He publicly asked for a trade in the press conference.
Yeah, he's lucky that I don't own the Houston Rockets. I would have traded him to like Minnesota or something.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm serious. Just when you got a player that's out there and he's giving half effort, send him to Canada.
It was a rough start to the year, and so
yeah.
He does that. They ship him to Brooklyn. Whatever. The rest of the season is like this just long, arduous, lots of losses, worst record in the league, guys constantly getting hurt. Set a record for the most starting lineups in an NBA season. And we only played 72 games last season, right? Like it was just awful. And then we get to the NBA draft lottery and the Houston Rockets only have a 52% chance of keeping their pick because it was a protected pick in the top 4, but had that dropped out of the top 4, they would have lost it actually in the Russell Westbrook trade to Oklahoma City. So Houston had this really coin flip chance that they don't get to keep their pick, right? And then they get the pick, they get Jalen Green. This feels like the light at the end of the tunnel, right? Like we've gotten through all that tough time as a Rockets organization, and now we've got Green. We found this Turkish kid, this guy from Spain that was on their national team is showing up this week, right?
Right.
Things seem to be falling together. I just hope it keeps going. I think we got a really good young core. I hope John Wall buys into the mentor role. Christian Wood's 25, 26. Jason Tate's 25, 26. So I hope that thing keeps moving in the right direction after what was such a rough year. I don't mean to sound spoiled. We haven't had many years like that in Houston. We had the number 1 pick for Yao Ming back in 2002, and we hadn't really had a lottery pick since then. And so that was rough. Not that we have a championship either. We've just kind of been out there. The last hot tea cold brew question, and then I have a just hot tea question. The last hot tea cold brew question, Kevin, I'm going to start with, we talk about all these young guys, the young guys in Houston, the young guys in Detroit, the young guys in Orlando, so on. Hot tea cold brew, guys like Michael Beasley should not be allowed to play in Summer League. So Michael Beasley is 32 years old, and he was invited to come play for the Summer League team for Portland. His last time in the NBA was in the 2018-19 season. He was a Laker. Before that, he was on the Knicks. But really, his longest stint was kind of in Miami or Minnesota. He was he got traded in a swap there early on, but he had a couple years here and a couple years there. And so I guess my question is hot tea cold brew, or my prompt is hot tea cold brew, Kevin. Guys like that, 32 years old, veterans of the league, should not be in Summer League.
Well, I'm gonna go hot tea with that one because if you're trying to make a team, that's what all the camps are for and all that. Whereas the Summer League, you're trying to get these guys to be able to play NBA basketball. Beasley already knows how to do that. So, and I'm glad that you brought. I didn't even know he was even going to play until you just brought it up. So, I if he's invited, I guess go ahead and show up. But I don't understand, what do you hope to accomplish going up against an 18-year-old, 19-year-old kid? So I'm definitely going to come in hot with that and say that he should not be maybe sitting on the sidelines. I get that. So maybe he can get, somebody's attention. Maybe they can, get him to the camp or something. But he shouldn't be on the court in Vegas.
LaDarius, do you have a problem with older guys being in Vegas? Guys like 30 plus, 28, 29 plus. Having just joined the 30 club myself a few months ago, like my knees do hurt a lot more. LaDarius, do you think these guys should be able to come play in summer league?
I left the 30 club a long time ago, so.
Yeah. I think Kevin, I think he might have his like the gold card, I think, or something like that now. Silver, platinum. I don't know. I don't know the level. I don't know the levels. I'm just 33. I don't know the levels. I just got mine a couple years ago. So
I'm in my 50s. I don't know the levels either. So know that.
I assumed it was a tier level. I assume.
If there is one, I haven't found it yet. So
you mean
LaDarius, should guys our age be allowed to play in the summer league?
Absolutely not. No, because here's the thing. It's for those younger rookies, second year. To me, it's not preseason, but it's a showcase of younger talent. We at this point, if you're Michael Beasley, and if you don't know you're good, and you've been in the league, I'm not saying it's a problem, but it's a problem.
Right, I'm with you.
Because the reality is, listen, there's training camp, there's actual preseason games.
Right.
So if you really want him to see, hey, he's going to be playing with people, age range, it's a little different. To me, I look at summer league as seeing young talent, draft picks, second year players, getting a chance to own their skills, and in some cases try to make a team.
Right. So that's what you're all there for, is to get on a team.
Right. And to me, Michael Beasley at this point, listen, we know he's good. He's played in the league. He's been around, because I completely forgot he was still in the,
I thought maybe he slipped in the quicksand or something. I hadn't heard his name in a long time.
Yeah. Just like that. And Rudy Gay, like Rudy Gay is still in the league. Rudy,
my dad just signed him, so we don't really need to get into that. So
yeah, because I had to look over my notes. I'm like, I remember this guy from high school, and I don't. And listen, I checked my card as well. I'm like, oh geez. So I'm like, I remember Rudy Gay when he was in Memphis, and I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah, that's a few years ago. So yeah,
exactly. But to your point, Michael Beasley, if you're Portland, you could sign him, let him play. If he's there, like on the bench, kind of just being there to be there, fine. But to actually give this man minutes, you're taking away minutes from other players, and that to me is detrimental, especially when you're Portland and you're kind of in that mini transition there. You need to see what you have.
Right.
You need to see
you don't know what you are. You don't know what you are.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too. So, for reference, for anyone who's like, who's this 32-year-old player we're all talking about? He was one of the best players in America as a high school kid, right? He was a second-team parade All-American, McDonald's All-American game MVP. He gets to Kansas State, which was a weird choice, but he was Big 12 Player of the Year. He got Freshman of the Year. He won a bunch of awards his freshman year in college. One and done guy, goes to pros. He is actually, I had forgotten he was on the first team All-Rookie team. He was, he obviously had good stats, but I just forgotten he was that kind of good in that class. And then he kind of petered out really quickly. He was in Miami, Minnesota, Phoenix, Miami again, international, Miami again, international, Houston, Milwaukee, Miami again. Like, he keeps bouncing around. I'd forgotten that he signed a quick 10-day contract with Brooklyn last year until he tested positive for COVID and voided the contract. Or like, he couldn't be invited to come complete the contract, I should say. I totally get trying to prove yourself and play with a team. And frankly, had I not watched Portland play, I might have been hot, or I might have been cold on this, I should say. I'm hot on this because I watch him play, and it's not like he's gotten better or changed, right? Like if he had like gone from a like back to the basket post and like added a 3-point shot, and he wanted to show that off, that's one thing, right? Or frankly, vice versa. If he was kind of a guy that had been labeled as soft and he wanted to go show that he can be in the post, or that there's nothing different about Michael Beasley at 32 than there was like 26, except that he's 32. And so I don't get why he's doing this.
26 either. So, what's the upside of that?
No, exactly. And so I don't get it either. A week ago when I just saw the announcement, I was like, oh, that's interesting. I want to see what he's added to his game. I haven't really seen much added to it. And so I'm hotter on this now that he shouldn't be allowed to be there than I would have been having not watched him play, because I don't get it. Anyway, we all agree on that, so I don't need to sit on it too long. The last question that is just a hot tea question, because I'm only asking for your hot answers. Kevin, you're the fantasy guy, and so while it breaks my snake draft,
okay,
I'm gonna start with you. You've watched some summer league, and I'm gonna say you're good at fantasy because you beat me in fantasy basketball last year.
Okay.
Have there been any standouts that you're looking for in your fantasy drafts when the season comes around?
Well, I'm gonna go. I'm not gonna go too deep into the player pool, so to speak.
Oh, you don't want to give me your secrets now.
What I've seen out of your guy Green, you know what I mean, the number 2 pick. I like what I've seen out of him, and we talked about Suggs. I like what he's done, and I like as LaDarius talked about the scoring. I like what he's rebounding. So those are a couple of guys right there that I think you need to pay attention to coming up in the draft. And there are some players that actually played some games, for their parent team this past year. And so like Patrick Williams of the Bulls is playing there, and he played in 71 games last year. So, he's the kind of guy that does need to be there at the summer league because he's still trying to establish himself. If he can get himself, he was actually on my team there for a while, but I think that if going forward, he can really do some stuff. He averaged 9 points a game last year, so I think that if he can just get himself together all the way, and just round his game, he's something. Patrick Williams is a guy that I'm pretty excited coming out of the summer league.
Yeah, so Patrick Williams is a guy on my list too. Have you noticed anyone? And again, LaDarius, you don't play fantasy basketball, tell us so. But it is just accumulating stats. So any stat stuffing kind of guys you've noticed?
Well, listen, I played fantasy basketball, and I like I say, I won't say the results of my league for legal reasons, but let's just say the injury bug really did a number. But but what I will say is that I do like the Patrick Williams. I really do like that. But I looking at this rookie class, somebody that I think is maybe worth discussing is Evan Mobley. When I look at Evan Mobley, I just saw the Cavs when they played the Magic earlier today, and I was just very impressed because he's like a guy, he can pretty much do anything on that court. So when I think of fantasy, when I think if you're just trying to rack it up, Evan Mobley could be that guy to do that, because what I saw a little bit of him play at college. I think he went to USC. So seeing him in the summer league now, I was like, I finally got to see an actual full game of him, and I'm like, he has the tool set. And I'm like, so in looking fantasy, I'm not saying you go out there and draft him. Like, don't take the advice from me, take it from Kevin. Like, I'll you slap like an asterisk somewhere on my screen. Like, don't take the full advice from me. Trust Kevin. But I think one guy, in my opinion, looking at the draft class is Evan Mobley, because obviously guys like Suggs, who can just, like I say, shoot, he can rebound, he can, and for the man, he's gonna get all the playing time in the world. He ain't competing with nobody, but the guy he looks in the mirror every morning. But I look at someone like Evan Mobley, and I'm like, he could be that guy, because listen, Cleveland's Cleveland. He's gonna get minutes. So Cleveland's Cleveland. Like
That's right.
people can take that and interpret it as the way they want to. But Evan Mobley's a guy that you're throwing with Colin Sexton. It's going to be a fun team in Cleveland. I don't know how many fun for the wins, but it's going to be a fun team to watch.
Well,
so I kind of like Evan Mobley. The more I watch him, the more I see his game develop. Because any big to me that can shoot, to me is interesting because of the way the game's evolved. So give me. I'm looking at Evan Mobley.
Yeah. Only guys I would throw in, and again, I would not disagree with either of the guys. I think Hook 'em Horns, Kai Jones, a high-flying center playing with LaMelo Ball. Obviously, a center that's rebounds and blocks, but playing with LaMelo, I anticipate also lobs, and so those are high percentage shots, right? And he's been fun to he's been flying, and that's fun to watch. And then I don't know if he'll be able to share a backcourt with Trae Young, but I've been really impressed with Sharife Cooper. And if they can play off of one another, there will be nights that a team just doubles Trae Young, and Sharife Cooper, I would assume, would end up getting a bunch of points because he can clearly score the basketball. And those would be the couple of things I'm looking at. But I would not disagree with Patrick Williams. I would not disagree with Evan Mobley. I would just add guys. Those are both good picks.
Parker, if I could just throw one other guy at you, he's got one of the great names in all of basketball. I'm talking about Emmanuel Quickley from the New York Knicks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What a great name. Quickly. And the Knicks have all kinds of guards back there, so he needs, all he can do. But he averaged 11 points last year. So if he could really, get so that he's a solid rotation guy, he could really help himself here in the summer league.
Yeah, and I think the thing there is that if you're looking at accumulation of multiple stats, the point guard for the Knicks, if you look around their team, ought to get a lot of assists, right? They have, catch and shoot guys. They've got a big man rolling in Mitchell Robinson. So theoretically, that should be another category in a 9-cat kind of league that he'd fill up. I think that's an interesting perspective to watch the summer league with, is like who fits where in the fantasy world. Having just played my first season of fantasy basketball last year, losing to Kevin also, although I might go with LaDarius' injury bug excuse, I had Kevin Durant, and that sucked.
Yeah, that killed you. That's hard to come back from.
That was
Just
tough.
Write it off.
Yeah.
Just write it off.
And I was never going to trade him because the moment I trade him will be the moment he comes back. So I just got stuck with him. We're going to transition to our next segment. The next segment is called the long two, because this is the midweek mid-range. A mid-range jump shot is a long two-pointer. A lot of people in the NBA today, especially if you're watching Summer League, hate the mid-range, but that's who we are, and that's what we do. And so I'm going to ask you guys, I did Kevin twice in a row, so I'll start with you, LaDarius. After watching the Tokyo Olympics and watching both men's and women's basketball, 3x3, I guess the United States did not have a 3x3 men's team, but swept the other three teams they had with the gold medals. What were two takeaways you had after watching Team USA's gold medal runs?
Well, looking at the women, the first takeaway for me at the women's is that they're still 7 straight gold medals. To me, that's when you look at, and they tied for the men's team all time. Why, and I watched pretty much every game that they played in Tokyo. To me, that was the takeaway. To me, there was nobody in that field that could touch. Like, there were moments where you were kind of worried, but my first takeaway was, listen, when you have 7 gold medals, and it feels like, and Paris is 3 years away, and normally maybe roster change is maybe not Sue Bird not being there, Diana Taurasi maybe not. So you may have to, refill the guard perspective. But when you look at, when we kind of look at how deep they can go, to me, Team USA, the women's team, to me, that the takeaway was 7 gold medals, and they made it look easy, and it shouldn't be that easy. It shouldn't be that easy.
Shouldn't be.
It should not be that easy, because when the rest of the world, and this is what to about men's basketball, the rest of the world kind of caught up with the men's basketball, and it feels like with the women's team, it still feels there's a gap. And when I watched play, like when I saw them play Japan, and I just felt so bad for Japan, because they didn't have any size.
Yeah.
Like when you have Brittany Griner and Breonna Stewart of my Storm, that's and guess who dominated that game? Brittany Griner, Breonna Stewart, and also Asia Wilson.
Right.
Like, and mind you, they're young enough. That was my first takeaway. The second takeaway from the men's team is that I after how they played before they got to Tokyo, there was some concern I did have. You had people talking about should Popovich even be the coach of this team? What I saw was that I saw Kevin Durant, and I know people, however people may feel about Kevin Durant, but Kevin Durant, it seems, I think that he just, when it comes to gold medal games, he gets it, and it kind of carried over to Tokyo. The way he plays the NBA, and he carried it over to Tokyo. My second takeaway is simply, I look at the USA men's basketball team. It kind of felt hard to watch sometimes that maybe this team, maybe not gold, maybe bronze, but they came together at the right time. And to me, I don't care what sport it is, when you're hot at the right time, I think Team USA and understand, they had guys come in like Devin Booker. They had to come in after the finals to work out and then play and have that continuity. So mind you, the USA, I'm not going to say it was adversity, but to me, when I look at the U.S. men's team, they really came together when it counted the most. And I think, and that's a testament to Popovich. It's a testament to all those players, but more importantly, it's a testament to understand the fact that Team USA, the men's basketball, to me, it's about putting the egos aside, because there's a lot of egos on that team. There's a lot of egos. One basketball. And they brought out gold because it felt like we should still be the best in basketball. But like I said, on the men's side, that gap feels a little bit closer. It feels like Spain, and it feels like even with Luka and Slovenia, it feels like the gap is getting closer. So those were my two takeaways there.
Kevin chuckled when he said Luka, so now I'm anxious. Kevin, again, United States in women's 3x3, women's basketball 5-on-5, and men's basketball 5-on-5 took away 3 golds from the Tokyo 2020 Olympics that happened in 2021. Talk us through, aside from learning to count days, what was your takeaway? What were your 2 takeaways?
Well, I think that pretty much, LaDarius nailed it. Because I think, the women are still playing, kind of like at the 1992 Dream Team level. And the other nations have not caught up to the women. They haven't come close at all. Because if you look at some of those scores, that they won without really, any kind of a challenge. And so, when they played Japan 90-75, they beat them, and it wasn't really that close. And so, when it comes to the women, they're dominant. You talk about 3 years from now, I see them continuing to be dominant. And the men's side, though, I know that there was some, the playoffs, ended like, what a week before, seemed like, the Olympics began. But the rest of the world has caught up to the men's team. And because if you look at some of these things, if you take out the Iran and then Czech Republic, because who plays for Iran, we don't know. But if you take that out, the average score of the men's side was 89-81. That, the rest of the world is right there with them. And I was kind of disappointed because I wanted to see Luka, get his team to the championship and see what he could do, going up against, the US of A. But he got tripped up by France and the Stifle Tower. So, so when it comes to the men's side,
don't act like you were beat up that Rudy Gobert beat Luka. Don't act you were not that beat up about that.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
So, but when you think about it, because remember the first game they played, the men's side, they played France and they lost that game.
They did.
Yeah. They absolutely. When they were in Vegas, they looked disjointed. They were out of sorts. So it wasn't a given that they were going to win the gold medal, and they put their egos aside, like the LaDarius was talking about. So I give them props, because they overcame some outside obstacles that they had absolutely no control over. And one of the things I'm going to just throw out there is, Popovich, he's so concerned about things that are going on in the rest of the world that he's not putting his full, emphasis in the coaching. And I have a friend that lives here. He's a San Antonio Spurs fan. He's big time. And he'd tell you the same thing, that he is just not focused on coaching, which is fine if you want to go ahead and beat up Trump and whatever else he's doing. But if you're going to be a coach, be the coach. So, and I didn't see that out of him as much as I would like to have seen a coach. Yeah. So that's pretty much my takeaway. If it wasn't for Kevin Durant, the men wouldn't have won. That's just where that is.
Yeah, and he was by far and away our best player. I say our being identifying as an American, I guess. I know you guys both live in the States too. But I say he was by far our best player, and he was certainly in the last, the elimination games, the best player in the tournament. I feel weird about my takeaways here, because on the one hand, I know that wasn't the best American team we could have sent, right? No. I watched them lose a couple of games in exhibition and the France game to open the tournament, or to open pool play. And I'm like, yeah, but if they'd had Harden, Curry, Kyrie, okay, cool. Anthony Davis, that could have been a whole different thing. And so on the one hand, I'm like, am I riding this team too hard? Because they kind of took the 1B team. And then on the other thing, I also feel like my takeaway and regards to the men's team is that I think that we do need to look at how we do USA basketball, right?
Yes.
Colangelo, we got bronze in 2004. We took it as a big embarrassment, national shame kind of data, right? And they redid the organization, and now it's 50 or 60 pros working out every summer for a couple weeks, focusing on the international rules and the international game. And then when FIBA comes up or when the Olympics come up, they pick a team from that pool of players. I wonder if it needs to be a smaller pool with maybe a little bit bigger commitment, right? Do you need to, because right now, that's just a great way to work out in the summer, right? If you're one of the 50 or 60 guys invited, that's a great way to go get workouts in with pros and good coaching and so on. And do you need more of a commitment to this team, to the camaraderie aspect? Because Olympic Patty Mills, international Patty Mills is a different player, right? International Luka's kind of the same because he's super dominant, but they clearly know how to play with him in a different way than, frankly, if I'm being honest, the Mavericks do, right?
Right. And absolutely.
I think that you see that happen differently. And so I wonder if we need to kind of tighten that down a little bit, because we're talking about the gap is shrinking between us and everyone else. On the women's side, the thought I had, because they got to play 3x3, and this carries over to the men's side too, is this needs to be like swimming, where you can do both, right? Sue Bird.
You could do 6 events in swimming.
Right. Yeah. So you can do front stroke, back. You can do breaststroke, butterfly, right, freestyle, and backstroke times every distance, plus all the relays, plus the in between. Right. And my thought there is not that we need to have a bajillion ways to play basketball, but if you're going to have 2 ways to play basketball, the basketball players ought to be able to play in both. Because frankly, I hope that, because I like watching Sue Bird play, I hope that Sue Bird considers playing 3x3 in 2024, because that feels like it'd be less difficult on your body, right? She's getting up there in age and that kind of thing.
4 other players now.
Yeah. I just also think that, man, if we could run a 3x3 team with Taurasi and Wilson and Stewie, good luck. Right.
Absolutely. It's not happening.
Yeah. If our 3x3 team for the men's side had, even the big 3 in Brooklyn, for all I care, just pick 3. The men's team would have been different. Instead, we sent some guys that weren't even playing in the G League. And so I wonder if we need to make sure we make a concern. I wish I could see that happen, because frankly, the cool thing about, and we'll get to the WNBA in a second, but Sue Bird and Diana Taurasi set the Olympic basketball medal record at 5. Which sounds like not that many medals, but you realize 5 medals is across 20 years. Right. That's a whole different thing than Phelps won 8 in 2016. And I don't mean that to take away from Phelps. He's a tremendous swimmer, but they don't have the same
opportunity. 28 different events in swimming.
It's just a different. Even a sprinter, like watching Usain Bolt run in London was great, but he can do the 1, the 2, the 4x1, like boom, 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 right? And that's a handful of medals right there. And so I think that as we're adding this second version of basketball, we need to kind of take into consideration how to incorporate the basketball players. Anyway, that's all I got on the Olympics. A couple takes off. The last segment, or I guess I should say the second to last segment, it kind of depends how you look at it. It's open container. And so this is where just a free-flowing conversation, open conversation, just because like you pop the top off your Yeti, anything can go in or out. I do that every time, but that was a little bit harder. Anyway, it's been a long day. So open container question for you all, and I'll start with you, LaDarius, because this is kind of just like fantasy was Kevin's area of expertise. This is somewhere you really watch. You're a really big fan here. The WNBA is about to start back up. For folks that haven't been paying attention, the WNBA stops their season. I say middle. It's closer to 2/3, right before the Olympics, to let the women go play in the Olympics, unlike baseball does, right? Baseball is the same time of year and says, no, you're either here or you're there. Players have to make a decision. The WNBA says, we'll just pause the whole season so y'all can all go play. We'll come back. We'll pick things back up. So we're about to enter like this home stretch of the WNBA's regular season and then playoffs. LaDarius, what are you looking forward to in the second half? What are you watching?
Well, there's a couple of things, but one of the things that I'm very vested in is looking at the race at the top. Full discretion, I'm a Seattle Storm fan. I chose not to wear anything green to show that I can try to be down the middle, but that will change in about 30 seconds. But so when I look at the race at the top of the WNBA standings, you have the Storm, who went into the break with a 1-game lead over the Aces, and kind of right there's the Connecticut Sun. And to me, and then you could also throw in the Minnesota Lynx. Going into the Olympic break, they won 7 straight games. To me, I'm very interested to see those 4 teams. I'm not discounting everybody else, but I'm interested to see, like for the Seattle Storm, can they win a back-to-back championships? Can they win? The last time that's happened, I believe, was the Sparks back in 01 and 02. It's not easy to go back-to-back. It's super difficult. I'm looking for that. And I'm also kind of vested in the MVP race because I'm looking at it's a 3-team race. Jonquil Jones of the Connecticut Sun, Sylvia Fowles of the Lynx, and Breanna Stewart of the Storm. If you ask me today, as I'm talking, who the MVP is, I'd go with Jones simply because of the fact that she's the only player right now who's averaging 20 or more points a game with 10 rebounds, and she's shooting over 50% from the field and 40% from 3. So when I look at that kind of gives her the edge to me over Fowles. So I'm kind of looking for that race to see how tight it's going to be, because to me it's a three-player race to me.
Well, and it's interesting, and we'll throw it to Kev right after this. If you were to do it in baseball terms, Jonquil Jones is your classic 5-tool player. Like she's got a lot of things she's very good at, right?
Yeah.
She may not be the best post player as far as like a low post, but she's pretty good. She may not be the best 3-point shooter, but she's pretty good, right? Like she's like got all those things going for her. She's a lot of fun to watch. I did not know her name coming into the season. I really enjoyed watching her play this year. I'll get to my take in a second, but Kevin, any WNBA things you're looking forward to in the second half of their season?
Well, LaDarius kind of nailed it, because what you get, like he said, you got Seattle, and then you got Las Vegas right behind them, and you got Minnesota right behind them. And then over in the Eastern Conference, you've got Connecticut, and they're the only team that has a winning record over there. So I think the Storm are the best team, but they're going to have to go through the best teams just to get to the final. And so you might want to correct me on that, LaDarius, because I don't know if they do a thing like the NBA does.
Yeah, because what they do is, what I like about the WNBA format is that it's just essentially the 2 best teams. It's not where it's divided by conference. Because essentially I've never liked it, because to me, a team 5 games below 500 is the 8th seed in the East, and we know it's going to happen when they play the 1 seed in the NBA. We know it's going to happen. But in the WNBA, you're getting no matter what conference is. So you could potentially see a situation where the Storm will play the Aces. To me, that's prime time WNBA final. To me, that's the ideal matchup.
So that this goes to show you why LaDarius is the WNBA king around here. So, but you mentioned Jonquel Jones. What a great name that is. And as she brings it, she leads the NBA or WNBA in rebounding. And a player that I just got to throw out there is Aja. Is that how you pronounce it? Aja Wilson.
Asia Wilson.
Just because her last name's Wilson, so I got to throw her out, into the mix. But that's just not just a giveaway because she's averaging 19 points and 9 rebounds herself. So there are some outstanding players that are in the WNBA, and I'm kind of surprised because they just had the gold medal game was on Sunday, and then the WNBA starting tomorrow. You think they'd give them a couple more days to get back over here. Yeah. Japan's on a different day than we are and everything else, but they're throwing it right into the fray.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what to make out of that, but that's just the one game that they're playing tomorrow. And then Sunday, all the teams are playing. So, and it was about 12 games, for each team coming down the stretch.
I think that's right.
Yeah, 12, 11, however many that is. So that's enough games to really get into this thing. And, I'm in Dallas, as you know, and the Wings have never been able to do anything really. They're ninth right now. They've got a lot of young players, so maybe coming up in the future there'll be a reason to to really get excited about the Wings. But besides that, there are a lot of great players over there. So if you're not into the WNBA, you need to really pay attention to it.
Yeah, I would say the same. The funny thing is, so there's no Houston team anymore, right? The Comets got absolved. The Comets got done in by the recession.
I don't understand, Parker. Maybe you can explain how that happened, because they were the dominant team when the WNBA first started. They won every championship.
They won the first 3 or 4, I think. They won the first 2.
They won 4, and frankly, they still technically are tied for the most titles in the league. So when the recession happened, ownership had to change to the Rockets. The same owner owned both teams. He sold them to a new guy, but the new guy couldn't afford to keep the Comets running. And so the Comets just dissolved in the sale. The league owned them for like a year, and no one, again, it was 2007, 2008. Everyone's hit hard in the pocketbooks. No one stepped up and bought them. I wonder if that happened like in the most recent recession, if that would have happened differently because the league's in a different place. But anyway, the Comets, with no comments, I watch players because kind of like we talked about LaDarius and NBA teams. I live in Dallas too, Kevin, and so like I'm looking around, like the Wings are close and they're fun to go watch in person, but like I don't have this affinity for Dallas. The Seattle's good. The Vegas Aces are good. We talked about Jonquel Jones. Obviously, Sabrina and New York are fun. Like, there's lots of fun players. So I really like Dallas's Arike Ogunbowale. I really like Jonquel Jones. I've said that a few times, so I'll stop saying it. And then I don't know how much more Sue Bird basketball I've got left. And so I'm watching it wherever I can. Yeah. She controls the pace of a game in a way that I think I like that in the NBA as well. I think I like watching point guards that, like, whether it's Chris Paul or Sue Bird or whomever, that are like, I am controlling the other 9 of you. We're going to go at my pace, and where I'm orchestrating the conductor to everything that's happening. And so I really like that about Sue. She's getting older. She shares with Jewel Lloyd, who can do she's very good too. It's not like that's like a bad running mate. And then Asia Wilson has such a good Olympics. I wonder if that's going to kind of carry over into the way the Aces end the season. But again, I'm looking at players and continue to look for big finishes to the season, I should say, and then hopefully some good playoff moments, right? Our last segment is kind of, anyway, I keep doing this, but it's a chance to show off. This is not explanatory, but we are all people that are part of Belly Up Sports. And so I want to give everyone a chance to plug what they're writing or reading. Kevin, you said you do weekly fantasy baseball stuff. Talk to us. What you writing or reading lately?
Okay, so usually I write an article about the players, the pickup off the waiver wire, and I did that. And but last week I wrote an article because the trading deadline in baseball just happened a couple weeks ago. So I wrote an article as far as who was the winners, as far as players and fantasy were concerned, about who won the trade deadline. And so I did an article on that. And I think my next article is going to be, because if you're going to add players, then, by definition, you need to drop players. So my next article that I'm going to do is what are the players that you have on your fantasy team that you need to kick? And so that's the one that I'm working on now. You could look forward to that coming out on Monday next week. And as far as, like I said, the show, I have a baseball show that I do with Vince Stover from the
Sports
He's
Stove.
got a show that he does, the Sports Stove. He does a couple days a week. So, we got I think we got some strong stuff going on there. So if you are a baseball guy, come on over. And if you want to Twitter me, my Twitter handle is Kevin62 WILSEA. You could always, send me anything that you want to talk about to me on Twitter over there.
LaDarius, talk to us. What are you reading or writing about sports lately?
Lately, like I'm interested in Kevin in the baseball there. Because I'm a Cubs fan, and we're not going to talk about that.
Well, so on our show, just so you know, if you want to go back to YouTube and watch some of our shows, we hit the Cubs. We hit them hard. So
they had a hard year. They've had a hard year.
And just so you know, LaDarius, I advocated that the Cubs actually do what they did, because those players they weren't having great seasons, and so they needed to get better. A lot of them were on the last year of their deals and stuff like that. So they moved them on. I think that was the right call for the Cubs. And I don't. That kind of pains me, because I grew up about 35 miles from Wrigley Field. So I was sorry to see a lot of those players go. Especially they went and hit home runs all of them hit home runs their very first game. So that was kind of tough to see. But that's where I come in on that.
Oh yeah, it hurt me all right. It hurt me. It's it was a dark day. I'm gonna say it was like the stock market in the 1920s. I'm not gonna say it was that bad, but in my history book it is.
Yeah,
but the things I'm writing, I just finished contributing to a piece with the WNBA season coming up. I wrote a part with those that for the Beyond Women's Sport, which I write there as well, the WNBA, and I wrote a piece about the Seattle Storm and how they're moving forward. Because to me, I wrote about how Sue Bird and then Stewie and then Jewel coming back with gold, how them coming back into a situation where they got to play in the Commissioner's Cup Trophy game against the Connecticut Sun tomorrow in Phoenix, and just talking about their possibility of winning another WNBA title, and talk about they had a coaching change also as well. Dan Hughes retiring, and then Noelle Quinn being promoted, and she's 10-4 since she took the job, which is pretty good. And like when you were talking about Mark, when you're talking about Sue Bird, I've watched Sue Bird, lifelong Seattle Storm fan.
Yeah,
it's to me it would be the day I don't see Sue Bird on a court. In Seattle, it's going to be a hard day, because to me, you could argue she is Seattle. Like, I remember those days with her and Lauren Jackson, Swink. I remember those days. Once again, I'm not going to put an age on how old I am. I think I said it earlier. Hopefully you forgot that. Hopefully you forgot that, and you went to here. So yeah. I'm writing that as well, and also I also write about wrestling as well, and I also do a little wrestling. So and I'll have a piece coming out about the SummerSlam is coming up in about 2 weeks, and I'll be talking about wrestlers like Roman Reigns, and then his legacy versus John Cena. I'll be talking about the women's matches there as well. So that's what I'm watching, and I have books in here that I need to read. So but for the most part, it's just what I'm writing more than what I'm reading.
Fair enough. As far as stuff I'm writing or have written, obviously every week I do a Rockets roundup. The one for this week is going to obviously be covering the summer league. We have the number 2 pick, we play the number 3 pick, play the number 1 pick, and how that's gone. Obviously, a big part of that is Jalen Green. I've been really enthusiastically surprised by Alperen Sengun and that kind of stuff, so I outlined that kind of stuff there. I wrote a thing over the weekend about how the big markets won free agency and how that's interesting to see. We just saw Milwaukee play Phoenix in the NBA Finals, and Utah had a great year, and it felt like a year that like smaller or mid-sized markets might finally make a push. Obviously, Milwaukee winning it all helped that out a lot. And in the free agency, the rich got richer. Miami did well. LA, I'd argue did well. Or I argue, and the piece did well. And so you can check that out there on BailOutSports.com. Reading, it's a documentary, so it's more watching. But I'm going to advise everyone that's a basketball fan, go watch the Jermaine O'Neal documentary about the Malice at the Palace. It's on Netflix. I think most people have Netflix now, but the Malice in the Palace was obviously like the most chaotic. It was pre-Twitter. It was pre-everything. So you're like texting your buddies, calling your buddies, like, are you watching what's happening? Check SportsCenter. And then you're watching SportsCenter every hour to see like what the latest update is about this like giant brawl where Ron Artest goes in the stands and starts fighting fans. And then the fans fight back and it gets really ugly. Good mental health stuff in the Malice in the Palace documentary about like Ron Artest has a walk-around therapist that follows the team everywhere they go at that point in his life. And like, I was young, but I didn't know that. Like, and so, stuff like that, shed some light on the ordeal. I'm not going to say what it makes me think about the Malice in the Palace after. I want to hear what you guys say later. And then reading, anyone that I've been obviously plugging this one for a long time, Marion Fader has a book coming out later this week. It's kind of been leaked to some bookshelves and things like that, called Giannis, The Improbable Rise of MVP. She's a great writer for The Ringer. She wrote for SB Nation before that, Bleacher Report before that. She's a big time writer. And she's did this whole biography about Giannis Antetokounmpo. And so that's what I'll be reading this weekend. I hope to finish it soon. That's the thing I plan on reading this weekend by Marion Fader. Some of it got leaked today about like how hard of a coach Jason Kidd was, like making people cancel their Christmas plans to come in and practice. But the book isn't about Jason Kidd. The book's about Giannis. And so I encourage everyone to go read that. That's what I'll be reading this weekend. All right. Our actual last segment, and I really promise it is called a buzzer beater. You get 24 seconds because that's an NBA shot clock to get off a take. Do you have a take that you are waiting to get off of your chest, Kevin or LaDarius?
I'll yield to you, Kevin, if you have one first.
You'll yield to me. So
yeah,
we just talked about some reading guys. I'm going to throw a guy out there. A little bit, our own belly up. He's I'm failing this 24-second thing, but he's the Toronto Blue Jays beat writer for Belly Up Sports and also all things baseball. He knows. I'm talking about Graham Wallace. So check him out, and I'm just going to advocate for Belly Up because there's so much going on out there. Just tune in, get on Facebook, get on Twitter, find us, enjoy it.
All right, 24 seconds up. LaDarius, you got 24 seconds. Anything to talk about? Are you all right?
No, I'll go. I'll take the 24 if it's available. I'll take the 24 seconds.
Yeah, I got it.
If it's free, I'm not going to turn it down.
Yeah, I'll count you down because Kevin just started. I was like, oh God, I'll count you down in 3, 2, 1, go.
I'll kind of take the lead with Kevin and talk about some of the work that but I also write for Beyond Women's Sports, and basically we wrote a lot about the Olympics. We wrote about Simone Biles, Katie Ledecky. We wrote the WNBA, and like I say, I just praised them and all the amazing work that we're doing. It's a team effort. Teamwork makes the dream work.
Fair enough. I'm going to also, and this is not planned for folks watching, but I'm going to take my 24 seconds to plug Belly Up. So as it's going, again, Belly Up Sports just has made this major connection with Unhinged Sports, in which all of these shows will be streamed live all day long or recorded all day long on the Unhinged Sports Network. Nice collaboration with them. So you can check out shows like the Midweek Midrange the day after we air, starting next week. You can also check out some of their shows, whether it's wrestling content, baseball content, basketball content, all day long. You can put on it stopped me, so I missed, I guess. But just like old school radio, you just put it on in the background and shows will just keep on going. And it's a really, really cool concept and a nice collaboration between guys like Mike and Blaine here on the Belly Up side and the folks over like Jim at Unhinged. And so starting next week, you can tune in almost more like live radio. It's obviously going to be a little recorded on shows like this. We'll be plugged into the next day or plugged in later that day, depending on the show. And so go check that out starting this Sunday.
That's pretty exciting stuff. So, yeah, you definitely need to look into that.
Absolutely. For sure. Kevin, you've said it a couple times, but explain that Twitter handle. How are people going to find you? Where can they find you at before we sign off? And then I'll throw over to LaDarius as well.
Well, as I said, on Twitter, you can find me at Kevin62 WILSEA. The SEA comes because I'm a Seattle Seahawks fan, so I'm just throw that out there. And like I said, if it doesn't matter what the subject is, you could throw, right now I'm doing baseball, but, we're getting ready to do fantasy football as well, so any questions, any comments, anything, throw it over to me. I'm more than happy to engage people that are interested in what I have to say.
Go reach out to Kevin at Kevin62WilSea LSWILSEA on Twitter. LaDarius, where can people find you at?
First of all, that's very clever, Kevin. That's super clever. I'll just put that out there.
Okay,
you can find me. You can find me on Twitter at LaDarius_Brown on Twitter. And like I say, you can come in and talk to me. Like I say, whether it's WNBA, whether it's NBA, football season around the corner. I know people yell at me even before I even have to put up my Twitter handle. They find me. I don't go find them. So we know that guy. And like I say, just have a conversation, good follow,
Yeah.
So that's me.
Obviously, my Twitter handle is also on the screen. It's at Painsworth 512. It's at PAINSWRTH 512. All one word. That's Twitter and Instagram. I have another show that comes out as an audio-only show. It's called F in Sports. It's usually Monday or Tuesday, start of the week, every week, in which, again, my day job is that I am a teacher, and we do things like grade sports theses or hot takes. Sometimes we do multiple choice questions or essays or whatever, or we just talk through sports with a little bit of a school type lens, makes you feel like you're a kid again. And then this show, the Midweek Midrange, can be found on Twitter and Instagram at Midweek Midrange. That's at Midweek Midrange on Twitter and Instagram. And of course, you can find these shows recorded on YouTube, the Midweek Midrange, wherever you want to sign into YouTube and check us out. Be sure to like, subscribe, and check us back each week at 9 o'clock Eastern on Wednesday nights. That's all we got for folks today. Thank you all to Kevin and LaDarius for coming in. Again, always great to have new hosts on, new people on. But that's what we got for tonight. Nice, cool, almost 80 minutes. So it's a little bit long. That's all right. But again, thank you all for pulling up. Take care.
Yep. Have a great day.
All right, you too.